Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about Muldrotha the Gravetide as a commander. Hopefully you guys get some value from this deck tech. Hopefully there's some cards in here that were underrated or that could give you some sort of value if you were trying to build something similar or you were trying to build the same commander. But anyways, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Obviously, our commander is Muldrotha the Gravetide. Very good commander because of the recursion that it gives you, and it has a very high target on its back as well. So this commander is notorious for providing a lot of value late game. And because of that, it's sort of kill on the spot type of commander. So I've really built it in a way where it's a very resilient deck, even without the commander. When I built it, I threw a whole bunch of reanimator things in it, and just a lot of recursion that the deck has itself. And people would ask me, well, why are you doing all that if you can just play Muldrotha and bring it all back? Well, guess what? Sometimes you just don't have Muldrotha, and the deck functions very, very well without it, wins games without it, and it's just very resilient, and it's able to put a lot of threats out. People tend to exile your graveyard a lot because they know you're playing a graveyard deck, but there's just so much of it that it really drains their resources early on, and then you get that Muldrotha late game, and you're able to sort of grind them out. So let's jump right into things with the artifacts. We have Ether Spellbomb. So a lot of these cards are going to be classic Muldrotha spells, and some of them might be some cards that you haven't seen before, like I mentioned. So hopefully you find that useful. Ether Spellbomb, your Soul Ring for ramp, Arcane Signet, classic commander cards, Lightning Greaves to protect your creatures or commander. Nim Death Mantle, I really like, because if you just play it for 2 and let it sit, you don't really have to use it right away. You just let it sit there. Hopefully it sticks around, and anything that gets put into the graveyard, they would have to exile, or else you could just pay the 4 at instant speed and attach the Death Mantle to it. I also like the fact that it gives it Intimidate, and it pumps it with +2/+2. So it's a pretty slept on card, or maybe not, but gives extreme value when things just like, there's board wipes that don't exile, or you just want to attack with something, or block with something like a Death Toucher, and just having it keep coming back is pretty annoying for your opponent. Hopping into more of the artifacts here, Perpetual Timepiece for that instant speed sort of elixir effect, where it shuffles your whole graveyard if you want, ideally, into your library. This is basically if they're going to target your graveyard with a Bajuka Bog, or just exile it in general, so you have that sort of protection. And the reason I don't play Elixir and I play the Timepiece is because of the mill effect. We do want to be getting a lot of cards into our graveyard, so there's a lot of mill cards in this deck, and cards that bring things back, obviously. But the Timepiece is part of this whole puzzle. We have our Commander Sphere, classic commander card here. It's awesome when you're able to bring this back and just keep sacking it for drawing cards. Our Palantir, this is a card that's been really nice to me. Usually your opponents, they don't want to take the damage because you can just leave some pretty high CMC things on top when you scry 2. So most of the time they're letting you draw a card. And if they don't, you just get to mill the cards, which you really like anyway, and then they take that amount of damage. So it's a pretty good card, and the higher the influence counters get on this, the more likely they are to let you draw cards, because they can end up taking a shit ton of damage just off of 4 cards that you mill, if they don't let you draw that card. So really great card. Conduit of Worlds, everybody knows this card for your graveyards. You play land straight from the graveyard, and you can choose things to play, permanents to play in your graveyard. Obviously you can't cast anything that turn if you do, but great card all around. It's an artifact that you can bring back, so awesome spell there. Hopping into the creatures here, we got our Deathrite Shaman, Haywire Might to deal with those pesky artifacts and enchantments, and I like the fact that it exiles it, not just destroys it. I played Caustic Caterpillar in this deck, which was essentially the same effect, but instead of exiling, it would destroy. However, the Caterpillar does destroy. Um, it could be any artifact or enchantment. This one, the might is specifically non-creatures or non-creature enchantments. So a little bit of a downside there, but the exile has a lot of upside. Spore Frog, probably the MVP of the whole deck. I think every Muldrotha deck runs a Spore Frog. If you're able to recur this and it never gets exiled, it could really just run away with the game because you'll never take combat damage, and it's very cheap to bring back. Stitcher Supplier for that mill effect on coming in and leaving. Baleful Strix, classic Muldrotha card here because it's a creature and an artifact, so it could be brought back with either or, with either clause. Then we're jumping into the Wayfinders here, which mills you cards. The Ilsean Grove gives you that extra little ramp, and then Mana Fix, Eternal Witness, classic card that everybody that plays green plays a witness mostly, and being able to recur a lot of these cards. That's the thing with this theme. Look at these cards as you being able to recur them, and giving you extra value, not just solely the fact that it's a card that's good on itself. So a lot of these cards, they're really good on themselves, but they just become extra valuable with the recursion. Old Rutstein here, love this card because it gives you a clause for an effect for every single card that hits your yard. So if it's a land, you get a treasure token, get to ramp up a little bit. If it's a creature, you get a 1/1, and if it's a non-creature, non-land, you get a blood token. So essentially discarding something from your hand, like a big creature that you want to reanimate, and then being able to draw another card off of that. So blood tokens are nice. Splingbroom Druid, just to ramp up. We have our Uro. So Uro, on its own, when you're casting it for 3, the effect alone is very good. When you're able to recur this, a lot of the times we're not even going to use the escape cost because we don't want to be exiled things from your yard. But just being able to recur this for 3 mana, coming in, drawing a card, gaining you 3 life, and then putting a land if you have a land in your hand is an amazing effect. Wood Elves for ramp. Glen Elendra, classic blue card. The Persist makes it extra gravy. Sidisi for that mill effect and giving you creature tokens in the form of zombies. Timeless Witness, basically an Eternal Witness, but with the Eternalize effect. We have Venser, Shaper Savant, classic blue card that's played in a lot of blue decks. World Shaper, again, played in a lot of Muldrotha builds. I usually don't attack with this. I just play it, and then from all the fetches and other things that I use to throw lands in the graveyard, just leaving him on blocking duty is good enough to bring them all back. So I love that. Doom Whisperer for surveilling. Basically as much times as you want, really, by paying the life. Muldrifter, the evoke cost is awesome. Recurring this is awesome. Now we're hopping into a couple of our reanimation cards here. Phyrexian Delver, coming in, returning a target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So with this deck, I try to play a lot of not only like a good balance of entomb effects, things that get things into your graveyard, obviously milling to get things in your graveyard, and then reanimating spells to get them out. So trying to keep a good balance. You don't want to have too much of one and too much of the other, or else you really won't be able to sort of consistently be able to do the plays that you want to. Then we hop into the Lich here. The Lich is just a great card because instead of drawing, you get to look at the top 3. You could put 1 into your hand and then the rest into your graveyard. You pay 4 life, you tap this guy, it gets indestructible until end of turn. Yarok is also another MVP of this deck because you get double the trigger, so it's basically Panharmonicon. If you guys don't know what that is, you could look it up. It's an artifact, but a lot of our creatures that are coming in, such as the Phyrexian Delver that I just showed you, those effects would double. So Phyrexian Delver comes in and you have a Yarok out, you're getting 2 creatures from your yard. Same with the Burning Rune Demon, which is the next card here. Comes in, you look for 2 different cards. If you have a Yarok out, you could get 4 different cards. Diluvian Primordial. This card is so cheap, and I feel like it's so underrated. You know, it really depends on what your opponents have in the yard. It plays off of other people's yards, but if you play this at the right time, it could just run away with the game very easily, just because like you're getting 3 instants or sorceries from their graveyard. I'm sorry, you're getting either an instant or sorcery from each player's graveyard without paying its cost. Super underrated card. Runescar Demon, again, you know, classic demon that you play to tutor for a card. Sepulchral Primordial. I love this Primordial. Comes in, same effect here as the other reanimate cards, but for each opponent, you get to put 1 target creature from that player's graveyard under your control, so it could really get out of hand. You get their best stuff, Consecrated Sphinx, you know, their Titans, whatever, you name it. Sheldred, making them, you know, sack their creatures at their upkeep and then reanimating your stuff at your upkeep. Terastodon, classic green little fatty over here, just getting rid of their shit. When you reanimate this on a turn 3 or 4, it's pretty brutal. You could get rid of their lands. So yeah, Terastodon's a good card. Villas, Broker of Blood. Love this guy. You pay life. You get to remove some things if you want. And then whenever you lose life, so this would be on each instance, you draw that many cards, even if you just lose life from taking combat damage. So this card is just a solid black demon all around. Vorinclex, everybody knows my boy Vorinclex. Gives you that extreme ramp whenever you do either play him or reanimate him. You're gonna get to tap 1 more mana. So that's you know, Vorinclex is good. Play Vorinclex. Friendly reminder, play Vorinclex. And then we got Jitaxius, Core Augur, my boy Jinny Jin. Brutal when you're able to play him early. Brutal card. We hop into the enchantments here. So Kaya's Ghost Form is going to give you that protection from when it dies, or even is put into exile. That's the amazing part about it. You just bring it right back to the yard, and then with the effects that you have, you know, it's a brutal card. And remember, a lot of these cards, I basically tried to make this build, as you should with any Muldrotha build, have a lot of cards that are permanents, right? Because with Muldrotha, you can bring them back. You can bring back your instants and sorceries, unfortunately. So you really want to be playing effects that are going to be permanents in its form. Here we have the classic reanimation spells, which is Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead. Then we have Necromancy and Virtue of Persistence here, as well as Defense of the Heart if they do have 3 or more creatures. So some solid enchantments here to reanimate your cards. We have a Meat Hook Massacre. I know that Toxic Deluge is a very good card, and I do play it in a lot of my black decks, but for this deck I opted for the Meat Hook, again, just because it is an enchantment and you can bring it back with Muldrotha. And then we play Pernicious Deed to deal with other stuff. Hopping into the instance here, we have your Entomb effect. We have your Mystical Tutor to look for basically any instant or sorcery, some counters in the form of Swan Song and Counterspell, Vampiric Tutor, and then Reincarnation, another little gem that I found. So if you have like a little 2/2 zombie laying around, or any other creature that was like used to ramp, like a Springbloom Druid, and you want to block with it, then you just do this in response, and then when it dies, you get to bring back something from your yard. So nice little reanimation spell at instant speed there that I'm really loving. We're gonna skip the lands for now so we could go into the other cards, but we have our Oko. Oko is just an amazing card that you should play if you're running blue and green. You get to basically nullify all of their creatures by making them lose their abilities. So that includes your commander, it would become an elk. Hopping into your sorceries, we have your reanimate, the classic reanimate spell here, obviously. We have your demonic tutor. Then we have persist and unmarked grave. With this deck specifically, there are legendary spells that you want to be reanimating, but I really wanted to be able to have another reanimation effect, and persist was the next best thing. I know that it's non-legendaries, but there's still some non-legendary creatures that are very, very worth it. I'll show you here again in a bit. So, for example, your Terastodon, your Sepulchral Primordial, your Diluvian Primordial, your Runescarred Demon, and your Burning Rune Demon. These are all non-legendary cards that are going to give you extreme value when you reanimate them. And then obviously your Phyrexian Delver, or your Venser. Venser is actually legendary, but you get the point. Still a very good reanimation spell. I think it's solid. And I wanted as many reanimation spells as possible in this deck. Unmarked Grave is going to get you that non-legendary card and put it into your graveyard. So basically an Entomb effect that would go hand in hand with Persist. Buried Alive, everybody knows Buried Alive, getting 3 of them and putting them into your graveyard. Then more reanimation here in the form of a sorcery with returning target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You do lose the value. You do lose life equal to its mana value, however. Victimize, choosing 2 creature cards in your graveyard, sacking a creature, and then returning those to the battlefield. So reanimation for 2 creatures. Then we have some board wipes here in the form of Damnation and Living Death. If you're playing Reanimation or Muldrotha, you should definitely be playing Living Death, especially if you're milling tons of cards into your yard. You should be the player that gets the most value out of this spell. And then your Breach the Multiverse, which is just absolutely broken. It's a very, very broken card if you get to cast it. We have, that's it. The sideboard is just a whole bunch of cards that didn't make the cut, but we don't really need to go over this. Just some cards like Get Rog should really be in the deck, but I rebuilt this deck, and I had to take a whole bunch of cards out that just didn't make the cut. Just played better cards. And then going over the lands here, we have your Ancient Tomb to be able to ramp up quicker, your Bajuka Bog because it's a black staple. We play your Command Tower, High Market. I love this creature for being able to sack. I love this land for being able to sack creatures. And then your classic, Battle Bond lands here with your shocks. Command Beacon is an MVP land, and because if you have this and you're able to keep bringing it out with Muldrotha, you're just never going to have to pay the tax for your Muldrotha because you can just cast it from your hand every time you put it into your hand from the command zone. So having this, in combination with Muldrotha is just, it's super, super valuable. Hinterland Harbor, we got your fetches here, Myriad Landscape, a little bit of ramp there, and Reliquary Tower, and nothing too crazy. Your Triumph, and that's it, guys. So if you have any feedback, any ideas, any comments, just leave them below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you got some value from the deck tech, I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to give you some value. And again, this is my second video actually on YouTube, so I'm just hoping to connect with like-minded people. I'm doing this for fun, really, on my free time. I just have a huge passion for Magic, and would love to talk to the community, connect, explore ideas together. Tell me what I'm missing, tell me what I should be playing. This by no means is a CDH deck. I consider CDH decks to be able to consistently win on turns 1, 2, 3. CDH is a completely different format. But this deck, I would say, in the casual scene, is a very high-level deck, and it could do some really nasty things. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.